Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is stalking her neighbors. Am I the jerk for how I feel about my wife's creepy hobby project? Okay, this sounds insane, but I swear my wife is totally normal otherwise, which makes this so strange to me. For context, we're both in our late 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she devours true crime. She says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated, in her words. A couple of months ago, we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple divorced because the husband cheated. It wasn't too crazy or anything, but my wife became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or a cookout, she would bring it up, hoping there would be more new information. A month later, I stumbled upon the board in her home office. I was doing some cleaning and I found a massive bulletin board leaning against her wall. Curiosity got the better of me and I turned it around to find a literal conspiracy board of all of our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting them. I was totally confused and I asked her what this was. She told me it was a hobby that she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all of the images from Facebook or other social media, printed them out, and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane, and she said maybe if I were doing it as a man, but she was just having harmless fun as a hobby. She wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors. She just liked feeling like a detective. She told me to view it as a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out, but I tried to let it go. I thought about it a lot. Well, every now and then, I admit to checking the board when cleaning, but just a couple of days ago, I saw that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I'm casually friends with. I asked her why she added me and if she thought I was cheating, and she said that was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said if it made me feel better, she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. I got upset and lost my temper. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage would be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. I'm starting to feel bad now, and it hit me more than usual this morning. Should I apologize to her? And before you ask, no, I don't suspect her of cheating. Honestly, I wish she was, because it would at least make more sense than this. Am I the jerk? Update. I have now approached her, and I told her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Literally 2 days later, crap hits the fan. Our happily married next-door neighbor finds a woman's clothes under her bed that don't belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, which she still didn't throw away like she promised she would, and of course, the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all, and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there, and I swore it wasn't there the last time I saw the board. So either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it, and he said no, he never would. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said that one day, while I was at work, his wife asked my wife to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was, so yes. I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the clothes, and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said, don't worry. He still had the clothes, and I looked at him. It was my wife's, but something I knew that she never wore because it was from something I bought her for Christmas one time that she said was too uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife, and I ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the clothes, and I asked her what was going on. She played dumb, but I told her to cut the BS. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there. Either way, she was in trouble. She confessed to planting it there and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something like that. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of just ruining our marriage, she ruined our neighbor's marriage and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. I even showed the Reddit post, which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated with her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I'm barely speaking to my wife, and it's only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. I seriously need advice. Dude, once this gets out, you and your wife are going to be ostracized from the community. Like, this is awful for your marriage, and something is seriously wrong with her, but the fallout from this is going to be massive. I paid to have my grass cut while I was out of town, and the landscaper stole my lawnmower. I used a third-party service that hires local landscapers for temporary needs. I had never had an issue until I returned and went outside to cut my own grass, only to find my lawnmower missing. I usually keep it on the back porch. I reviewed the cameras, and I was amazed to see that the hired landscaper stole my new lawnmower, which I had used only a couple of times, and tried to push it through the neighbor's yard. He apparently didn't realize the camera had a wide view. The third-party service confirmed it was theft, and now I have to deal with the police to track down the landscaper and get my mower back. In the video, you can see a man with a leaf blower walking around the yard. He then approaches my lawnmower and drags it away to his car. The lawn service said that if it's theft, it has to be filed with a police report. They refunded the service, but everything else must be handled through the police now. Update 1 hour later. The third-party service gave me direct contact with the landscaper. His excuse was that he thought the lawnmower was broken and took it off my hands because he assumed it was broken since I called them. Now he's claiming someone stole his trailer, which had the lawnmower in it. I'm talking to the sheriff and filing a report. The sheriff says it's felony theft because the amount is over $500. He's giving the landscaper 24 hours to either return the lawnmower or pay the full amount. If not, a warrant will be issued. Small-town sheriffs are serious. Now I've posted it on Nextdoor, and someone privately messaged me saying they know the landscaper's mother and sister and will contact them. They also provided his Instagram page. Update 3. Someone posted the video on Facebook from Nextdoor, and now people who know him are making fun of him since he goes by a different persona on social media, where he claims to be a professional, self-made influencer, and they're tagging him in the post. I didn't want to dox the guy, I just wanted my lawnmower back. His mother reached out and asked me to take down the videos and posts because it's hurting her son's business and reputation. I let her know my next steps, and it's not her responsibility to fix her son's mistakes. I sent her the receipt so she can forward it to him, as he has 23 hours left before a warrant is issued. 2 hours later. He has deactivated all of his social media as all of his tags are grayed out. It's 9:47 p.m. here. I will call him at 7 a.m. for an update on what he plans to do. I honestly have no faith in this whole situation. Update the next day. I woke up to 36 unknown missed calls from 1 to 4 a.m. Thank goodness for sleep focus and silencing unknown callers. I called him back and my phone goes straight to voicemail, but I used my Google Voice number and his number rings. He blocked me from contact when all I'm trying to do is retrieve my mower. I also contacted his mother, who seems to have had a change of heart. She tried calling him, but he didn't answer. She said, "Do what you've got to do." Is he trying to flee over a lawnmower? I'll try again in a few hours. This is starting to really frustrate me. A few hours later, I finally managed to contact him through his sister. He claims he doesn't have $579 to pay for a new lawnmower and asked if I could tell the sheriff to give him 2 weeks to come up with the funds. I told him it's not my issue. If you're a business owner, you should have some type of credit card or account. He's so desperate that he even offered to cut my grass for free to make up for it. This undeniably admits his guilt to theft. I rarely go in the backyard unless cutting my grass or barbecuing, and my lawnmower was missing for almost a week. I told him he better borrow or ask his family, because I'm not budging on pressing charges and following through with the sheriff. He has exactly 9 hours and counting. 5 hours later. The sheriff sent a deputy to my house to survey the area, take my statement, and get documents from both Lawn Starter and the company that contracted the landscaper. The deputy said they found a record of him in another county for theft. They're moving forward with a warrant. I can't feel sorry for this guy. He made this bed, now he has to lie in it. I just received a text from the guy from another number. This dude is really doubling down on his idiocy. I'm just going to forward this to the sheriff. This is what the text said. "Hey man, this is Deshaun. You posted a video of me moving your lawnmower. I didn't take the lawnmower with bad intentions. I thought it didn't work and was going to do you a favor. I have plenty of customers who ask me to haul their old equipment all the time. I tried starting the lawnmower and it didn't even fire up. I'm not going to pay you for something you left abandoned in your yard. That's on you, not me. As for the sheriff contacting me, I have a great attorney who will make sure this issue is resolved. You act like this is a downfall. but through all this, I shall come up. I'll keep making money and doing great because God got me and my family. You stay blessed." 2 hours later. Deshaun has gone off the deep end. I think it's best to cease all communication. It's so bad I sent the messages to his mom and sister. He needs genuine help. Here's what he said this time. "You think this is some type of joke, bruh? I'm not worried about you or the police. This is a little game to me. People like you want to tarnish your own people from being successful. You'll never understand the hustle and the grind I do. I do this every day. I could buy 10 lawnmowers if I wanted to. Cheap lawnmower. What, you can't even afford a John Deere or a Cub Cadet like a real man like me? You're a clown and will always be a clown." In the meantime, I'm going to purchase a new lawnmower, this time electric, so I can keep it in the house. 2 days later. The sheriff contacted me and said the warrant is live. If his license plate is read by a plate reader or if an officer runs his plates after a stop, he'll be arrested. They don't have an active address for him except for his mother's address. I'm extremely satisfied with the sheriff's department's response to this. Honestly, I don't know if I should forward this to his mother or not. A good friend of mine, who's a corporate lawyer, reviewed the terms of Lawn Starter and said that this is a great case for a lawsuit. He offered to handle it pro bono. He believes that there's a good chance they won't fight it and will settle out of court. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she wants to give second chances to people, then she should do it herself? My sister Zoe is kind to a fault. She gives people second chances, but she's too trusting with those she gives them to, and it ends up having consequences for whichever family member Zoe convinces to stick their neck out. For example, my grandparents were talking about needing a cleaner, and Zoe suggested they hire her friend Ash. After several months, my grandparents found out that Ash had been stealing from my grandma's jewelry. Zoe had also recommended Ash's cleaning services to our grandparents' friends, and now we suspect she may have stolen from them as well. Zoe made excuses, claiming Ash was a good person but had a difficult home life. She said Ash only took the jewelry because she was trying to get away from her parents. My grandparents were not amused and said Ash was lucky. That was the only reason they didn't report her. Later, Zoe recommended another friend, Lily, as a babysitter to our brother's son, Max. According to Max, Lily was on her phone the whole time, and he was left to fend for himself when it came to dinner. He also said Lily was mean to him, and Max isn't the type to make up stories like that. Again, Zoe made excuses, saying Lily's boyfriend had just broken up with her and that she's a good person who's just going through a rough patch. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. What kind of good person treats a kid poorly to feel better about herself? Naturally, Michael, our brother, was furious at Zoe for recommending Lily. Zoe kept pushing me to talk to Michael and agree with her, but I eventually had enough. I told Zoe that while I understand her desire to give people second chances, none of the people she recommends ever seem trustworthy. I suggested she put her own neck on the line next time so she could see why we're all frustrated with bearing the consequences of her kindness, and then having her insist that she did the right thing. After that, our parents got involved. They said they understood why Michael and I were frustrated, and they would talk to Zoe about being naive. However, they also believed Zoe was just trying to do a good deed, and they thought I should apologize to her because, regardless of the situation, it's wrong to criticize someone with the best intentions. Normally, our parents don't interfere in our disputes. We're all adults now. But this time, they've stepped in, which has left me torn. Should I apologize, or should I stand my ground? Not the jerk. It sounds like Zoe has to believe these things or make excuses because she doesn't have trustworthy, reliable friends, and that's actually sad. If she had to admit her friends made poor choices, maybe she's worried she has no good friends, which I don't think she has. You're not wrong. She can keep these friends, but also acknowledge that what they did was wrong and illegal, like stealing jewelry. Zoe is welcome to have Ash clean her house and can donate her jewelry if she'd like. But Zoe should absolutely be responsible for telling others that her recommendations have had issues to give them a heads up. An example is, I had a bad tradesperson I used and referred to many people. I didn't know he was shady until something happened. I immediately called everyone I referred him to, explained what he did, and told them to stop using him or to be careful. I felt that was my responsibility since it was my referral. No excuses. Am I the jerk for kicking my uncle out of his house? I, 23, male, was very close to my grandfather who passed away last year. He left me his entire estate, including the house, after my grandma divorced him. Before he passed, my grandma had asked me to let her son, my uncle, who's 50, not biologically related to my grandfather, rent the house. They set up a 3-year contract for $1,800 a month, and at the end of it, he could buy the house for $377,000. The contract ends this November. After a lengthy probate process, the house is now officially in my name. My uncle had asked that I'd extend the contract because of high interest rates, but I didn't want to. I'm hoping to buy my own home soon. My grandma pressured me, saying it's family, so I reluctantly agreed to extend it for 3 more years. While I was waiting for a new contract to be drafted, my uncle asked if he could start construction on the house. I said no, but then a friend of mine, who was doing the work, told me that my uncle had already started construction without my permission. I went to check it out, and sure enough, major work had been done without permits. I confronted him, and he denied it until I showed him photos. He claimed it was his house and that he could do whatever he wanted. Later, during a family holiday, my uncle and his girlfriend ambushed me, proposing a 5-year contract with lenient rent terms, no restrictions on construction, and permission to be sublet. I refused and said I'd have my lawyer draft the contract instead. During probate, my uncle and his girlfriend discussed what they would prefer contract-wise, leaving it more open-ended. I listened to their wants, but I told them I would send them a contract drafted by my lawyer once the house was in my name. A few months later, my uncle, his girlfriend, and my grandmother sent me the 5-year contract they had proposed during the family holiday. I firmly declined. My grandmother then called and went off on me for not signing, claiming that if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have inherited anything from my grandpa. At that point, I lost my temper and said, "You've got to be kidding me." She responded, "Your grandpa would be disappointed in you for using that language with me." I replied, "Don't use my grandpa against me," and I hung up. Since then, my grandma and uncle have cut me off. I had my lawyer draft a new contract, 3 years, no subletting, and a clause requiring my approval for construction. The rest of the original contract for my grandpa is the same. Now my uncle is saying he can only qualify for $350 instead of the $377 that he owes me, and my family is pressuring me to accept the lower offer, accusing me of forcing him out. Am I the jerk for refusing his contract, insisting he pay the full amount, signing my contract, or moving out, and standing my ground despite family pressure? Not the jerk. Prime example of mess around and find out. OP, please talk to your attorney about both renters' rights and squatters' rights in your area, as well as if the non-permitted work will have any impact on your ownership. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I'm not going on vacation to celebrate my half-brother's 16th birthday? I, 16 male, will be 17 soon. I live with my dad. My parents are divorced, but there's a twist. They were already divorced when I was conceived, a couple of weeks after. Dad was clear he wanted to be in my life. Mom and he didn't get back together, and while Mom was pregnant with me, she met her now husband, Dan. It was awkward from the start, especially when Dan showed up at the hospital while Mom was in labor, but Dad was in the delivery room. Things got worse during Mom and Dan's engagement because Dan wanted to take me out of state for 4 nights without Mom. Since Dad had to give permission for that, he said no. Dan argued that he was going to be my second dad, that I'd grow up with 2 dads, and that he should be trusted to take me out of state. Dan would constantly talk bad about my dad and bring up that incident, saying Dad treated him like a lesser parent. He also complained about Dad pushing him out of the delivery room, which I think he's still jealous about. Dan even mentioned the fact that my parents were divorced before I was born. I hated Dan for talking that way about my dad, and my loyalty has always been with my dad. I rejected Dan every chance I got, and he blamed my dad for that. Mom never told Dan to stop. In fact, she encouraged us to spend time together. When I was younger, I made Dan's life miserable as payback for how he talked about my dad. I caused scenes when Dan tried to make others believe he was my dad, even in front of my half-brother. I probably hate Dan as much as he hates my dad. My half-brother grew up knowing how I feel about Dan and how Dan feels about my dad, so now he hates my dad on Dan's behalf. He doesn't like how I treat Dan, so we fight a lot. He says Dan is a better dad and that I should treat him better. We do not like each other at all. I can honestly say I don't love or care about my half-brother, and I have no loyalty to him. We've never had a good relationship. We constantly argue about Dan or my dad. Our relationship hit rock bottom when I told him I would never like or respect Dan and that I'd celebrate if Mom and Dan divorced and I never had to see him again. My half-brother believes Dan deserves better. I hated living at Mom's house so much that last year, Dad asked the judge to give him full custody. I was interviewed and custody was changed. I still have to go to Mom's 1 weekend a month until I turn 18. My half-brother is turning 16 in May, and Mom has promised him a birthday vacation. She wanted to check dates with me so we could all be there, but I told her I'm not going. I said I'm not celebrating her other son and won't in the future either. She started crying and asking why we had to be like this. She said we're family and that I might regret losing a brother one day. I told her I'm not changing my mind, and she said I was being unfair to everyone. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This all started with Dan declaring you were going to have two dads. If he had just accepted a role as a step-parent and friend, all of the fighting and animosity may never have happened. This looks like a done deal at this point, and everyone has to accept the situation as it is. OP. Dan is still trying to win, but I meant what I told my half-brother about how glad I would be if he and mom divorced and I never saw him again. I have zero respect for the guy and don't ever mention him when I talk about my family to others, but he's blinded by this need to stick it to my dad. Not the jerk, because you're just a kid in a tough situation. I don't really understand all the delivery room stuff, and I don't think it's worth worrying about what happened 17 years ago before you were born. You can decline to go on the vacation. Not the jerk. Your mom's husband talked crap about your dad all your life. Your mom does not step in and tell him not to do that, and then doesn't understand why you don't have a healthy relationship with her husband and his son. Am I the jerk if I stop cooking for my boyfriend? My boyfriend and I made an agreement that because I come home later from work than he does, he cooks dinner and I cook lunch. It's been going well so far, but he doesn't put in nearly as much effort cooking dinner as I do for lunch. For example, his dinners for us mostly involve microwaving frozen foods. I, on the other hand, cook on the pan and make food that I buy from the grocery store. Chicken, vegetables, dumplings, etc. My food takes a lot of effort, and I'm excited for us to eat it. I'm happy my effort will pay off since we'll be eating something healthy and nutritious. The issue is, he doesn't want to eat my food unless I pack it for him. I usually make the food and expect both of us to pack our own lunch, but nope, he refuses to eat it unless I pack his lunch for him. So, feeling slightly offended, I decided to stop packing his lunch altogether from that day on. And since then, he has not eaten any of the food I cooked for us. For many days, I was left eating twice the portions because he wasn't eating them, or I ended up throwing it away. He would rather starve than pack his own lunch. Am I the jerk if I stop packing his lunch for him? I feel really bad eating nutritious food while he's left starving or eating frozen meals, but at the same time, I feel like he kind of did this to himself. I cooked for him, and all he has to do is scoop it into a container. Edit. No, it's not difficult for me to put food in a container for him. I just don't understand why he can't do it himself. I cook the food. He's not disabled or handicapped. I don't expect him to plate my dinners for me. It's not about the time spent packing lunch, it's about the principle. I feel like I'm his girlfriend, not his mother. Another edit to be fair. He doesn't always do frozen foods for dinner. Occasionally, he will actually cook something, but he says he hates cooking, so it's usually just some meat and nothing else. For example, a steak with no sides, no vegetables, no sauce, just steak with salt and pepper. It's low-effort food that takes 10 minutes at most, so it wouldn't take up much of his time. He has time to pack his own food, and no, he does not plate it for me. I don't expect him to. Sometimes it's chicken with just peas, pasta with chicken and canned tomato sauce, macaroni and cheese from a box, stuff like that. Another edit, because some people suggested he might be buying lunch instead of packing it. He doesn't buy his lunch. I'm 99% sure of this. I know how he is. He's very much against spending money on food outside. He only spends money on food when we go out on dates or when he needs things for his hobbies. I've seen how he is when he has no lunch. He'll eat a can of tuna and a can of pineapples from our emergency pantry if he has to. He will not buy food outside. So yes, while I'm eating the nutritious food I cooked for us, he's eating really crappy food because he doesn't want to pack his lunch. Edit. We're both 22. Final edit. I talked to him about it, and he said it's okay. We can just make our own food from now on. So I guess now I'm making my own dinners and my own lunches, and so is he. It's not ideal, but oh well. I really would have liked us to talk it out and start cooking for each other and just serving ourselves, but it's okay. My Karen ex kicked me out of our house, and we have a 4-month-old baby together. I'm really just looking for any words of advice, consolation, or even a reality check. I'm so torn up right now, and the sadness is eating me alive. We've been together for just over 2 years now. We found out she was pregnant 1 year into our relationship, and after so much back and forth on both parts, we decided to keep the baby. The baby was born 4 months ago, and he's the biggest joy in our lives. I love him with all of my heart, and my partner, well, my ex, does too. And I'm so happy that she's the mother of my baby because I love so much about her, from her beauty and her likes and her dislikes to her imperfections, but most of all, the way that she cares for our baby. I work more than full-time in order to pay our rent, groceries, leisure, clothing, etc. for her, the baby, and myself. I'm working extremely hard to provide her with the ability to be a stay-at-home mother in one of the most esteemed cities in Southern California. I do this because I've assumed the financial responsibility of parenting, and I seek to give the mother the best possible, stress-free life with the ability to be 100% present and available during such a tender time for the both of them. She had been mentioning how she fell out of love with me and didn't feel as romantically engaged in me as before. I tried suggesting this could be due to hormonal changes after giving birth to the baby, while still acknowledging her feelings. The first couple of months after birth, our love life was active and she was deeply in love with me, or so I thought. Things started to decline as I came back to work and was less present around the house. I really wanted to try to raise my son with my partner in the same household. We tried therapy, did a few sessions over the span of 1.5 months, had some insight into our situation, but no resolution yet. It came to the point where she told me that she was completely out of love with me and done trying, that she appreciated all the financial support and how good I am with our baby, but that I lacked the emotional space for her and the baby, which breaks my heart. She told me that she likes nothing about me and actually despises who I am and that it was a mistake to have a baby with me. She expresses how she is completely romantically detached from me and how she wants to find romance and love again, and that it can't work with me in the picture. She had been consciously keeping my baby away from my parents, his grandparents. They only got to hold him once or twice after he was born. She keeps the baby away from her own mother. She's an elementary school tutor. Meanwhile, my partner's father is home with her every day, caring for our baby while I'm at work, and he's even spending the night at our house. Her father is well-abled, retired, jobless, lives off Social Security, but too prideful to work consistent jobs. Therefore, he has no home or rental. He lived out of a cheap motel until they found that I could house him for free. I'm grateful of how he's able to be present to help my partner get sleep and look after the baby while I'm away, working for the family. Both of them know this. Everything hit the fan after I was told that I needed to pay for my partner to have a running car that was up to date with insurance and registration. I have 2 cars and only drive one daily. Her having a car is a given to me, and I was not trying to hold back this necessity, but they basically forced me into a situation where I had to sell my work vehicle in order to pay for her car, over $2,000, to get her back on the road. I didn't see her car as high priority, considering her father was living with her and was driving her into town every day, and I picked her and our baby up after work daily. I asked if there was any way that I could have some help in this situation, perhaps from her father, and that my work vehicle greatly facilitated my work life. She took this as me not being willing to sell my car and me not wanting her to have a working car. She walked out to her father, who came back angry and aggressive, asking me why I always push back to stop getting in the way of everything and do what his daughter says. I simply told him I have no problem in getting her car up and running and that I misunderstood just how high priority it was, considering the situation. He told me I had to grow up and got extremely aggressive towards me. Her seeing her father in this state really triggered her, as she views him in a very good light and almost whatever he says goes in her mind. I was then kicked out of my own home on the premise that she needed 3 nights of space and this relationship wasn't working. It has since been 2 nights. She let me see my son for 30 minutes yesterday. Half of the time he was sleeping. The other half I was trying to spend talking to her. We were in a busy environment and didn't get anywhere. She hears what I have to say, but has no feelings or empathy for me. She says we will do 3 more nights and then we'll see. I'm now kicked out of my house, living on friends' couches, while her and her father are living in the 2-bedroom space with 4 beds that I have paid for nearly 12 months. I can't believe this is my reality, and I'm absolutely devastated that I can't be with our baby or sleep under the same roof as them. As a father and protector, this is my biggest nightmare. Somebody please give me insight. Get a lawyer ASAP. Look into what rights you have in your area and get everything you need in order to be in your kid's life. Am I the jerk for making my husband leave a wedding reception with me? My husband, 34 male, and I, 32 female, have been married for 8 years and we have 2 kids who are 6 and 4. I'm currently 7 months pregnant with our 3rd. This has been by far my worst pregnancy. Overall, health-wise, me and the baby are fine, no major issues, but the general fatigue and discomfort of being pregnant while also having 2 other kids to take care of is wearing on me. I've also had more nausea and terrible heartburn. As a result of me being tired literally all the time, my husband has had to take on a lot of additional household and childcare duties. He's been great about it, and things are still running smoothly, even though I can do about 1/3 of the household and kid stuff that I usually did. This past weekend, we attended a wedding for one of my friends from college. My husband knows a lot of people in this friend group, and he was really looking forward to some adult social interaction. The wedding was a 3-hour drive from our place, so he got his parents to babysit and booked a hotel so we wouldn't have to drive home and we could enjoy the reception. I felt fine all day up until halfway through the reception. It was like I hit a wall energy-wise and started getting terrible heartburn. My husband was off mingling with people while I pretty much just sat at the table for over an hour talking with whoever came by to say hi. My husband came over to check on me and I told him I wasn't feeling well and I wanted to leave. He asked if I would be comfortable taking the shuttle back to the hotel by myself so that he could stick around and keep socializing. I told him I want him to come back to the room with me in case I start feeling worse so that he can take care of me. He didn't protest or argue with me, but he did give a big sigh in the, okay, fine kind of way. When we got back to the room, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately. He was short with me all morning as we were getting ready to leave. A lot of one-word answers kind of stuff. On the way home, I asked him what his deal was, and he said he's frustrated that I made him go back to the room with me, only for me to fall asleep. He said if he knew I was just going to fall asleep, he would have stayed at the reception for longer. He said this was the first social interaction he's had in months, and with the new baby coming, will probably be his last social interaction like that for months again. I told him that I didn't make him come back with me. I just told him I wanted him to in case I felt worse. I also told him my health should be his priority over any social event anyway. He said that wasn't really giving him a chance because if he stayed, even if I fell asleep right away like I did, I would still hold it against him that he chose wrong. He said he was just enjoying behaving like an adult instead of a dad for one night, and he's allowed to be frustrated that was cut short. It might just be hormones, but his attitude is making me feel guilty about this. You're the jerk. You had heartburn. You weren't in any danger. You ruined his night, and it sounds like you did it out of jealousy and selfishness. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.